KB, Westfield. Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by Westfield Bank. For more than 160 years, Westfield Bank has been an important community presence and commercial leader in the Pioneer Valley. With convenient full banking services in Westfield, West Springfield, East Longmeadow, Agawam, Feeding Hills, Springfield, Southwick, as well as Enfield and Granby, Connecticut, visit us on the web at westfieldbank.org.
Good morning, Westfield. It is 6:01. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM radio for the Westfield masses. My name is Tina Gorman. I'm your Wake Up Wednesday host, and I am joined by Pete Coles behind the glass, behind the board. Good morning, Pete.
Good morning.
How are you today?
That was the alternate version of your open.
I know. I was really all thrown, and I started to speak, and I went, okay, I'm not on microphone yet. So, yeah, that was actually, I kind of liked it. It was
It's a different edit. I remember making when I first did this years ago. There was two different edits of it.
Well, I like it.
And I kept both of them. So.
I like it a lot, but it threw me off a little, Pete. I was already a little discombobulated because I kept looking at you on the screen going, okay, what's he doing here? Where are we going?
I went, oops. That's the other one.
It's okay.
This one has the big finish.
It was good. Yeah, I know.
That's an ELO tune. You know that, right?
Yes. I did know that. I had forgotten it, but I remember because you told me that a long time ago.
It was one I kept hearing on WEI. They were using it for
really?
drumming up advertising, and there was a background tune, and I was like, I love that sequence, and I couldn't figure out what song it was, and it took me like 3 months. It was ringing in my head forever, and I was like, what is that? And I finally figured it out. I was like, oh, that's a great opening for some show, and I was like, that fits you perfectly. So.
It's perfect. I love it. Thank you so much. So we are in the fifth Wednesday of the month.
Yes.
Yeah. So it is April 29th. So that's always fun, for that fifth Wednesday of the month, trying to get a guest. Although my guests are all over the map now. We had a rhythm going with, Dr. Lovelace and Dr. Gorman and Joe Rouse and Eliana Lakritz. And now, that's a little out the window. I am hoping to reconnect with Dr. Lovelace. I've really given him, a break. I haven't even contacted him. I've been in contact with his wife, Christina, who's on my friend's board.
Yep.
But I've really kind of been, laying low. I know he's just out straight with, with all of his work.
I actually got to contact him, too, because he's my primary care, and I got to find out about antibody testing for coronavirus because we're pretty sure, Kenny and I are pretty sure, and a lot of people in this shop are pretty sure we all had it in January because we have an exposure path. Kenny was at the Consumer Electronics Show, and there was 150,000 Chinese there, most of them from the region where the outbreak occurred.
Right, and that was when he was in Vegas, right?
Right, and that was in January, and then I had pneumonia. So,
Yep.
I mean, and they said I didn't have the flu.
Yes.
So I really like to get antibody tested. I think it'd be very beneficial to find out that I,
well,
have
you know what,
antibodies
Pete?
for it.
I think our guest second hour is going to be Dr. Kristen Porter, and she's a microbiologist, medical microbiologist. So she would certainly be the person to kind of ask. We are going to be talking to Dr. Porter about testing and about vaccines and about treatments and so forth. So hold that question because she'll be on with us probably starting at about 7:15. Did you get the email that I sent you last night? She sent her photo in.
Yes, I got to get that processed during the first hour.
By the way, have you ever met her in person?
No.
Neither have I, but she's gorgeous.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
She looks like she could be a model when you look at that
Well, I know
picture.
she's one of the newer faculty
Holy
members.
Smokes. Yes.
And honestly, I came across her credentials by reading an email she wrote to the faculty staff to kind of not to well, I don't know if it'll calm everybody's fears, but to dispel a lot of myths.
Yes,
about
I think
things.
that's a good way of putting it, Pete. I think she was trying to dispel myths. Yep,
Because
absolutely.
if you just watch the news, you'd think that this is the zombie apocalypse,
Yeah, well,
and that's why I stopped watching the news.
Yeah,
I can't take it
I
anymore.
do it in small doses, and I'm
can't take
very
it.
select on which news channels I'm watching. I'm really looking for
Even then,
balanced
though,
reporting.
There's no such thing anymore. They're all. Well, I keep preaching this. They all have to make money, and they have to meet their investors' guidelines,
Sure.
and that's the biggest driver: is how many eyeballs you can drive.
Right.
You know, because we know that there have been outbreaks at a lot of assisted living nursing homes, but the only one getting coverage is the Soldiers Home. And why?
Right.
Because the rest of them are potential or current advertisers.
Sure. Yeah. Good point, Pete. Yeah,
I hate
good
to
point.
say it, but
No,
I've seen it happen before.
Sure. Yeah. Well,
So, you know, and that's how it works.
Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting to get Dr. Porter on because she doesn't have to worry about any of that stuff. So I think that we will.
Yeah, no, I think we'll get a straight answer
We'll get
from
the
her.
scoop
Yeah.
when she comes on.
Yep.
So how are you faring? So you had a couple of meetings last night, running simultaneously.
poor
not
me
an
and
easy
Lenore.
things to do. Yeah.
Poor me and Lenore. Lenore was trying to run one meeting. We found out that with a Zoom account, you can't run two meetings at once.
Okay.
So
Good to know. Note to self.
Yeah, she had a backup meeting.
Yeah.
Well, we try not to schedule overlapping meetings, and the school department had scheduled one, and the Conservation Commission had scheduled one, and the clerk's office didn't talk to the school department, so it got overlapping.
Right hand didn't know what the left hand was doing.
Well, and I had to figure out how to broadcast two meetings at once too. So one was on channel 12, one and YouTube, our YouTube channel, and one was on channel 15 and westfieldtv.org, and we had to post all that, and it just got it got a little crazy.
Oh yeah. So now, Pete, are you
cut
going to be? They're doing a media something today at 11, right? Are you involved
Yes.
in that one? Yeah. With
Yes,
the
that'll
mayor or
be
whatever.
that'll be the a press conference, kind of an update thing,
Correct.
and
will that be will
broadcast
that
on
be
channel 15.
Okay.
And before I was going to City Hall to do it because the mayor was in City Council chambers.
Correct.
And he has decided, and I completely agree with this, is to do it all as a phone conference.
Correct.
So kind of like the other meetings have been going. So what we'll do is, I'll do it from here. So
Okay.
I can do that from here.
Yeah, which is nice for you too.
It's a little bit easier to handle from here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to kind of uproot and we're trying to limit exposure in City Hall, and I'm kind of in my bubble over here too.
Absolutely. It's funny how you begin to feel very safe in certain areas. And we've said that about the senior center. I have 8 staff with me on a daily basis. Normally I have 14 people. So I have 2 working from home, 4 sheltering in place. We have 8 in various places in the building. But, we have this rhythm going, and everybody knows where they're allowed to be and supposed to be, and near whom and whatever, and we feel very safe. You feel like you're kind of in this bubble, and we know what we're doing here. So I feel like the folks at City Hall feel the same way. I feel like you feel the same way here. You're behind your secluded booth back there and very protected, which
Well,
is
and I
great.
feel that if I go down, it's probably a fairly big loss because
Oh yes.
Kenny could step in and do some of that, but he's not an employee. I mean, we'd have to
Right.
figure out how to make him an employee and things like that, and pay him as a contractor or something.
Right.
But
And the reality is that you and Kenny have been working together, so if one goes down, there is a chance that the other will as
right.
well. So
but we
you
also
gotta-
think that we already had it.
Yeah,
So both
yeah.
of us.
I think a lot of us feel as if we've been exposed.
Most people
so-
probably have.
Yeah.
If you read the studies, there's a study out of California that I read that they did a study that 40% of the population had antibodies. That means they never knew they had it.
Right. Right. Exactly. Yep. Exactly.
Okay, so I think that I was just reading an article in The Hill, and I don't know what slant they are, but it's an opinion piece in saying, the people we should be kind of like taking the model of Sweden. Sweden just protected their elderly population, and the rest of the country, they just kind of let do their thing, and, they haven't seen major numbers. They haven't been
Right.
overwhelmed. So I kind of think in the beginning we overreacted, which is fine, but now I think this has gone on too long because the numbers haven't materialized. And I think, I was saying this the other day, I think that the numbers that the Chinese gave us inflated the models, and that's what led to the widespread panic. And I don't mind taking precautions. This is a serious business, but
Yeah.
it's not as serious as the Chinese played it out to be, because they said all their infections happened in 3 weeks, and it didn't. It happened over 3 months.
Yeah. It was a period of time. Well,
What do I know?
we'll see what
I'm
happens.
just some guy in the. I'm just some guy in a booth.
We'll see what happens. Well, listen, some guy. What is your official title, Pete?
Media systems specialist.
Oh, good. Okay, I was really close because in my report for the briefing this morning, the mayor's briefing or update, media update, I will not be there because they keep insisting on scheduling these things at 11 o'clock in the morning, which is exactly when we start lunch distribution. And 11 o'clock, we already have a line backed up, practically onto Noble Street. So I once again said I will not be participating, but I will send in my report, which I did. I sent my report in yesterday, and Nina Bars is going to give my report for me. But I mentioned you, and I thought, I don't know what Pete's title is. So I called you a media specialist.
Yeah.
Because to me, you are. And just said that, you were working so closely with me on getting some programming up and running beginning in May for the Senior Center. So that's part of my report. So thank you for that. And
Thank you for making it not too complicated because I just don't have a lot of time right now to edit and stuff like that.
No.
I'm trying to get my backlog of the music shows done because that's been, it's like every day hits me with something. Today it's going to be paperwork day. Like I got to get a purchase order reopened that got closed by accident. And
I know.
These little things,
we're all doing that kind of stuff, and I think that's what people don't understand. It's that, and I found this when we were building the new senior center. I kept saying to people, just that piece of my job was more than 20 hours a week, just on the new senior center. But my other job as director of the Council on Aging didn't stop because we were building a senior center. And this is the same thing. You and I have jobs to do that are our regular jobs, and those haven't stopped because of the coronavirus pandemic. So now add on top of, what we normally do, but we still have to worry about budgets and, write POs and do all this other stuff. I'm still doing grant writing and grant reports and, all of the other stuff that I have to do anyway, board meetings and friends meeting and everything else. And that hasn't stopped because of the coronavirus. But now I'm also doing, lunch distribution and, I'm rolling up newspapers in the morning. I'm like newspaper woman now, I mean, it's so funny because Mary Lou and Najowski and Karen Noblin and I were talking about how many hats we have to wear now, but and you're doing
job
everything
needs to get done.
right, and you're doing everything with a skeleton crew, so we don't have the normal people that would do certain things. So plus we're all trying to answer the phone in between.
Well, yeah, like JP, Kenny, and I were here on Saturday all day working on rewiring this place.
Yeah,
and then Kenny and I were here all day Sunday and we're rewiring this place, and it was a lot of work, but it needed to get done.
Right. Right.
I needed to increase the flexibility for what we're doing, with the coronavirus,
Right.
Like yesterday I had computers in two different places broadcasting two different meetings simultaneously.
Yeah.
That was one of those things that you just wouldn't think about if you didn't have to do it.
Right.
Figure out how to pull it off.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So, but anyway, so thank you for all you do. So you're going to get lots of credit on my update report anyway at 11.
Gonna make me blush over here.
There you
while I'm
go.
doing
That's
the meeting.
okay. That's all right. So listen, we're going to be taking a break shortly. So I need to do at least our first famous birthday today. We have lots of famous birthdays. A lot of people born on April 29th. I gotta count backwards and figure out when was that 9 months earlier because we have a lot of good birthdays. So it is the birthday of country singer Willie Nelson. He's 87 years old today. He was born in Abbott, Texas in 1933. Willie Nelson rose to prominence at the end of the 1960s and contributed to the outlaw country subgenre, which challenged the music industry conservatism of Nashville at that time. In 1960, Nelson moved to Nashville, where he found a job as a songwriter for an organization called Pamper Music. The following year, two of Nelson's creations became hits for other artists. Farron Young's version of Hello Walls reached #1 on the country charts and sold 2 million copies, and Patsy Cline's legendary rendition of Crazy became a top 10 hit on both country and pop. Nelson's own musical recordings fell flat, largely because he didn't fit into the Nashville country music mold. His growing reputation as a hard-living, hard-drinking man only served to highlight his outsider status. In the 1970s, Willie Nelson returned to Texas, and inspired by Woodstock, his July 4th gatherings became popular musical celebrations and included performances from other country music outlaws, such as Chris Christopherson and Waylon Jennings. Back on his home turf, Willie Nelson also resumed his recording efforts, but in his own style and on his own terms. Soon, that unique approach won the long-haired, bandana-wearing performer a devoted following. Now in his 80s, Willie Nelson continues to record, tour, and devote time to charitable and political causes. So happy 87th birthday to Willie Nelson. That is pretty amazing. So you know what? Let's do a break. It is 6:14. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM radio for the Westfield masses and WCPC cable channel 15. We're going to listen to Willie Nelson singing On the Road Again. And hopefully we're all going to feel like someday we will be on the road again and not sheltering in place at home. Right. So here we go. Willie Nelson.
On the road again, just can't wait to get on the road again. The life I love is making music with my friends, and I can't wait to get on the road again. On the road again, going places that I've never been, seeing things that I may never see again. I can't wait to get on the road again. Road again, like a band of gypsies, we go down the highway. We're the best of friends, insisting that the world keep turning our way. And our way is on the road again. I just can't wait to get on the road again. The life I love is making music with my friends, and I can't wait to get on the road again.
Support for community radio on WSKB is provided by Betts Plumbing and Heating Supply Company, an independent, family-owned wholesaler serving Westfield for over 50 years, specializing in plumbing, heating, and industrial piping supplies. On the web at bettsplumbing.com or at 14 Coleman Avenue in Westfield.
Hi, this is Harry Rock, host of Rock on Westfield every fourth Wednesday at 8 a.m. Tune in for my view of this place I call home.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB. Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM, WSKB Westfield.
Good morning, Westfields. It is 6:18. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM radio for the Westfield masses and WCPC Cable Channel 15. It is April 29th. My name is Tina Gorman. I'm your Wake Up Wednesday host, and we are broadcasting live from Westfield Technical Academy. With me, behind in a very secluded glass booth, is Pete Coles, our chairman of the board, as we like to call him. Good morning again, Pete.
Good morning.
So Harry Rock, because it's not the fourth Wednesday, it's the fifth, and I know Harry did his show last week, so he's doing an encore performance.
He's doing another performance. He had a lot to get through this month. He last week he highlighted the nonprofits that are doing a lot of the food service stuff. So he talked to Andrea Allard. He talked to Bill Parks.
Yep.
And then in the final hour, who did he talk? He talked to somebody. Oh, he talked to Zap. He talked to somebody else.
Was it Rebecca? No, not Rebecca Hart.
I can't remember.
Okay.
It's been a blur.
Yeah, that's okay.
This week is kind of focusing on the school department because this was going to be the week where the decision was to come back or not to come back and when they were going to come back, that type of thing. So now that decision's been made, and now we're going to see how the school department is how they're reacting to it.
Right, exactly. Yeah, lots of changes.
So Sue Dargy, one of the special ed teachers, and Zap's coming into the studio.
Yeah,
he misses us.
Well, yeah, I'm sure he does. And, that's a whole other, that whole special ed that's a whole other, we think of parents trying to help their kids and homeschool and, that. And, but, when you've also got a child with special needs that puts a whole different spin on things. So that should be interesting. So Harry will be taking over at the 8:00 slot when I leave today.
He may go a whole 2 hours in this one. It's very possible that this could go very, very long.
Well, I think with Stefan, he's got a lot to say. There's just a lot going on.
Yeah, and I know Sue and the other guests will be joining us via Zoom. So
okay, perfect. Yeah, perfect. So let's do another famous birthday while I'm on the birthday mode. So today is the birthday of comedian actor Jerry Seinfeld. He was born in Brooklyn, New York in 1954. He's 66 years old today. So Jerry Seinfeld's interest in comedy was sparked at an early age through the influence of his father, who was a sign maker, but he was also a closet comedian. By the age of 8, Seinfeld was putting himself through rigorous comic training, watching television day and night to study the techniques of comedians. Seinfeld made his stand-up debut at an open mic night in 1976, and he appeared on The Tonight Show in 1981. After starring in his own television special in 1987, he developed the sitcom Seinfeld for NBC with fellow comedian Larry David. Produced and sometimes co-written by Seinfeld, the quirky, widely watched show emphasized loosely structured stories, seemingly insignificant subject matter, and a buddy system of comedy in which the Jerry character often played a straight man to his 3 tightly wound screwball friends. The show reached unprecedented levels of popular and critical acclaim, and many of its catchphrases and plot elements
Newman
became part of the cultural lexicon. I know, Newman. I mean, there were so many of them. Spongeworthy, do you remember that one? And what was the one for Christmas? Festivus? Remember that?
Festivus is, be careful. It was actually something before.
Was it?
Yeah, and then it kind of grew out of that.
Repopularized.
Yeah.
The show Seinfeld ran for 9 seasons and was the highest rated show in the United States when the final episode aired in 1998. So happy 66th birthday to Jerry Seinfeld. That was a lot of fun. We'll do one more. We'll do a couple more birthdays, and then we'll chat some more, Pete. Okay. It is the birthday of Tommy James, singer, songwriter, record producer. He was born April 29th, 1947 in Dayton, Ohio. Tommy James is 73 years old today. Tommy James and the Shondells were lucky enough to be making pop-oriented rock and roll in an era when most of the rest of the rock music world was trying to make more serious records. They were at a label who recognized the need to spend money in order to make money and didn't mind the expense of issuing a new LP with each major single. The group members themselves were having the time of their lives playing concerts, making personal appearances, and experimenting with advancing their sound in the studio. Audiences loved their work and their records, and it only seemed to get better. Their songs ran almost counter to the trend among serious rock artists. Mony Mony, which was a number 3 hit coming out of the midst of Vietnam, the psychedelic boom, and just as rock music was supposed to be turning toward higher and more serious forms, was a result of the group looking for a perfect party record and dance tune. Even the name, Mony Mony, was sheer dumb luck, a result of Tommy James spotting the, are you ready for this? I never knew where this came from.
Okay.
He was in New York in a cab, and he saw the sign for Mutual of New York, M-O-N-Y, Mony. It was a sign illuminated atop their building in Manhattan.
Sure, yeah.
At a key moment in the creative process, and there we had Mony Mony. Other hits included Sweet Cherry Wine, Crimson and Clover, and Crystal Blue Persuasion. The end of the Shondells' history came not from any real decision, but simply their desire to take a break in 1970 after 4 years of hard work and a lot of great times. So happy 73rd birthday to Tommy James of the Tommy James and the Shondells fame. And we'll do one more birthday for right now. It is also the birthday of the late Carl Gardner. He's a singer born April 29th, 1928 in Tyler, Texas. He passed away in 2011 at the age of 83. And Carl Gardner was best known as the foremost member and founder of the group The Coasters. The Coasters produced several enduring classics of the 1950s rock and roll music, including Yakety Yak, Charlie Brown, and Poison Ivy. Carl Gardner was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1987. So lots of great birthdays to do some really fun music with this morning with the Coasters and Tommy James and the Shondells. So we've got all kinds of good stuff going on. So Pete, when you are not in this studio, what are you doing? Or are you not or just sleeping at home? Because I'm hearing I was here all day Saturday, I was here all day Sunday. You could have called me. I was at the senior center all day Sunday.
Yeah, well,
Anything fun?
Well, my girlfriend came up. We had breakfast together.
Ooh.
We kind of kept our social distance.
Yep, kept your distance. I know.
It was nice just to see her.
This is a hard time to be dating.
It's
Keeping
really
social
hard.
distances. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really hard. So it was just like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Nice.
So yeah, that's pretty much
And
it.
she's down in Connecticut, right?
Yeah, and she's the personal director at a hospital, so
Okay.
she's been a little busy too.
Now, is she working from home or is she going into the hospital?
Mostly going into the hospital.
Yeah.
Some of her employees at high risk are working from home, but she's kind of got to be there. She's on the emergency management teams too, so she really can't not be there. So
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, so it's been interesting. We do a lot of FaceTiming, but that's not the same as being in person.
Well, it's not. And, it's funny because I was listening to Bob Plass's show yesterday. And by the way, you know what I'm doing? One of the things that I'm doing when I'm at home with some extra time is I'm reading James Holman's book.
Okay.
That he wrote. Remember he was on Bob's show within the past year.
I've been trying to get James Holman as a one-on-one guest with me forever, and he won't do it.
Well,
he's such a fascinating guy. He really is.
He is a fascinating guy, and his book is, I think it's called Among the Stars or something like that. I should bring it in. I actually borrowed it from Denny Akins because I really wanted to read it, and so it is so interesting.
Yep.
That last night where I sit and read in my in the bedroom is I can't see the clock from there and I don't have my watch with me, so I kind of lose track of time. I can really get lost in a book and have no idea what time it was. So it was about 9:30 and I said, all right, well, I have about a half an hour, and then I usually try to get to bed by 10 on radio show days. So but I couldn't put it down. And so finally I said, all right, well, and I wasn't even tired. That was the real problem. I probably could have finished the whole book. So I finally thought, gee, it must be around 10. Well, it was already like 20 after 10. And I said, all right, well, I got to go to bed. Then, of course, I went to bed and I just couldn't fall asleep. I don't know whether I was thinking about the book and what the next chapter was going to bring, but it's just a fascinating book.
Yeah, sure.
But, I was listening to Bob yesterday kind of talk about and who did he have on as a guest? Janine Queenan. Janine Queenan. And he was kind of talking about, are people feeling like they're getting zoomed out? Just like, okay, I'm tired of zooming already. And he was talking about just sort of wanting to kind of hunker down and just be by himself, take a good book. And, it's so funny because I think we're going through these different phases. As you were saying, FaceTime, it's not the same thing.
Sure.
I think at the beginning of all this, there was sort of this certain excitement to, we're going to Zoom or we're going to FaceTime. And it's not things that a lot of us had done before.
Gets old quick.
I think so. I think.
And there are things that I want to accomplish, that I can't because of the restrictions.
Yes. Yeah. Yep.
Things I want to get done.
Yep. Yep. I think that, there are some really interesting, of course, Gary and Grace and I keep looking for the silver lining. So every day we talk about another silver lining. And
our
there
research
are a lot.
department is chiming in. Danny Nason says, his book is called Out Here in the Stars.
Out Here in the Stars. Thank you,
I love our research department.
I know. Our research department is awesome. And, our research department, I used to send him my my, my sort of what's going to happen the next day. I used to email that to Danny, and I have to start doing that because he posted it somewhere, and it was really great.
Experience Westfield and more.
Yeah, so I think I'll start doing that again and letting him know who my guests are going to be.
That's cool.
So yeah. So anyway, it's but it is a little challenging with the Zoom and the FaceTime, and and for those of us who are not real technologically savvy, we got to learn all this stuff,
Yeah, it's not super hard. It's fairly easy, but there's something that humans crave contact.
Yes,
they do. Yep. It's just that's our nature. It's coded into our DNA.
It really is. And I've said this on multiple occasions. By now everybody knows we're doing a curbside lunch pickup program at the senior center daily, and our numbers they've gotten to the point now where they've pretty much tripled from what we started. And we're starting to get to the point where we're maxing out. There's only so many meals we can do with the crew that we have and with the funding that we have as well. But I think one of the reasons for the popularity is not just the dinners, which are delicious, by the way, but also just that contact. It's just as you said, Pete, because for a lot of our seniors, and they've told us time and time again, they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. They are sheltering in place. They're staying home. They're staying in their yard. And so this is their opportunity to get out in a safe way because they stay in their cars. We've all got masks on. We're wearing gloves. We keep a cart between us and the person. So you take your lunch off, your meal off the cart. But it is that human contact. And, I have to tell you, we have just a couple of volunteers that help us, and they're my family. So it's Gary, and Gary's with us now every day. And Grace comes in usually 1 or 2 times a week when we just need some extra help. But Gary has now become my official greeter. So he's at the position in the parking lot just before people come and pick up their lunch. So when they come to my station, which I'm with Karen and Mary Lou, and we're the ones actually distributing the meals. We don't want to have the cars back to back. We're afraid somebody might accidentally take their foot off the brake. We don't want any accidents. So Gary's several yards, before us, and he has people stopping there, and then one at a time they come to us. So that really gives him the opportunity to visit with people while they're waiting for the car in front of them. It's kind of like waiting in the bank, at the bank line when you do the drive-through banking.
Sure.
So he has gotten to know everybody. They've gotten to know him. He's Mr. Chatty Cathy. He's like the perfect greeter over there. But again, as Gary said, it is that human contact. And, as he's told me, he said, Tina, it's as much for me because he's sheltering in place as it is for the seniors who are doing the same thing. But it's as you said, Pete, people need human contact. So I think that's what makes I think that's what's making the sheltering place really challenging. All right, folks, it is 6:32. It's time for us to take our next break. And this song, I chose this song on purpose. So I wanted to do a song in honor of the birthday of Jerry Seinfeld, who of course is a comedian. So the first song that popped into my head was from Mary Poppins, I Love to Laugh. It was the song with Dick Van Dyke and Eddie Albert, and he's up on the ceiling laughing. So when I pulled it up on YouTube, I'm watching this thing, and I'm just cracking up because they're laughing. And I thought, you know what? If ever we needed to just laugh, it's now. So This is I Love to Laugh. It's from the soundtrack of the movie Mary Poppins. So enjoy.
I love to laugh loud and long and clear. I love to laugh. It's getting worse every year. The more I laugh, the more I fill with glee. And the more the glee, the more I'm a merrier me. It's embarrassing. The more I'm a merrier me.
Some people laugh through their noses, sounding something like this. Dreadful. Some people laugh through their teeth, goodness sakes, hissing and fizzing like snakes. Not at all attractive to my way of thinking.
Some laugh too fast. Some only blast. Others they twitter like birds.
You know, you're as bad as he is.
Then there's that kind what can't make up their mind.
When things strike me as funny, I can't hide it inside and squeak as the squeakers do. I got to let go with a hoe and we love to laugh loud and long and clear. We love to laugh so everybody can hear. The more you laugh, oh my goodness, the more you fill with glee. The more the glee, the more we're American.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Dunkin' Donut Shops of Westfield and the Sardinia family. It's nice to know that even as the world changes, Dunkin' Coffee remains the same at 7 convenient locations throughout Westfield.
Join us every Thursday morning
from 6 until at least 7:30.
Check out the Bobby G and Company Show
right here on WSKB 89.5
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB. Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM WSKB Westfield.
Good morning, Westfield. It is 6:36. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM, radio for the Westfield masses, and WCPC Cable Channel 15. It is Wednesday, April 29th. My name is Tina Gorman. I'm your Wake Up Wednesday host, and I'm in the studio with Pete Coles, very protected behind his glass. I don't want people to think we are way more than 6 feet apart, and there's all kinds of partitions in between.
Yeah, even when we have a single guest, so when Zap comes
tables,
in, the table is exactly 6 feet.
We have a 6-foot table, so we're good to go.
And it's been disinfected every single day. That thing's got more disinfected on it than I don't know what other surface in the city.
Right. I feel very clean. Well, that's like my building maintenance craftsman, Alex Hibbert. I feel like he's behind me with that spray bottle of disinfectant, like everywhere we go.
Probably.
Every time I have a staff member touching anything, tables, and I feel like they're all saturated with, disinfectant spray. So,
yes.
It's so funny, Pete. I was listening to that song, and it reminds me of when I watch a funny movie a movie that Gary thinks is funny or a show that Gary thinks is funny, and he'll start laughing, and I don't know whether I'm laughing more at the show or laughing at him. It's almost that herd psychology of that where laughter fear spreads too. If somebody is all worked up about something, you get it. But that, oh my God, every time I hear that song, I was cracking up by the end of the song. It's just, even if you know what they're laughing about, it was just and I just thought, we all need that right now. We need to laugh.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, so we have some other famous birthdays today. So let's go through our birthday list.
All right, you work on that. I got to work on some graphics.
All right, you work on some graphics. So it is the birthday of Bernie Madoff, fraudster and financier. He was born April 29th, 1938 in Queens, New York. He's 82 years old today. So in 1960, Bernie Madoff used $5,000 that he earned from lifeguarding and installing sprinkler systems to found his investment company. Madoff's firm offered reliable returns, and his client list included celebrities like Steven Spielberg and Kevin Bacon. There was a long list of celebrities. Madoff Investment Securities grew famous for its reliable annual returns of 10% or more. And by the end of the 1980s, his firm was handling more than 5% of the trading volume on the New York Stock Exchange. However, that all came crashing down when he was arrested for running an elaborate Ponzi scheme in December of 2008, when his sons reported him to federal authorities. Madoff pleaded guilty to 11 felony counts in March of 2009. So I've heard this so many times, Ponzi scheme, and I didn't really know what exactly a Ponzi scheme was.
You didn't?
And I figured some of the listeners might not know either. Yeah, I wasn't exactly, well, obviously
it
was unscrupulous.
There's a book on it?
Yeah, I don't want to read a whole book on it. I'm working on James's book. That's a good book.
Do you know who the book was written by?
Let me guess. No, go ahead.
On the Ponzi scheme.
Yes.
So, the guy that runs the professor that does the big broadcast.
Okay, yes.
His father was the IRS agent that brought down Ponzi.
Well, you know what? That's interesting. And what I didn't realize was Madoff had hired as his business grew, as his investment firm grew, he kept hiring more and more family members, and it was actually his sons who they didn't realize what was going on. At least that's according to what I read. And as soon as they found out, they turned their father in. They reported him immediately to the federal authorities. So a Ponzi scheme is a form of fraud that lures investors and pays profits to earlier investors with funds from more recent investors.
Yep.
So the scheme leads victims to believe that the profits are coming from the product sales or other means, and they remain unaware that it's actually other investors are the source of their funds. So that's what a Ponzi scheme is. And that summer, the 71-year-old Bernie Madoff was sentenced to 150 years in prison. So he's there forever.
Yeah.
Okay. So
he'll get out for good behavior.
We'll see. Okay. It is also now this is an interesting one too. It is the birthday of the late Tammy Terrell, singer. I knew Tammy Terrell was a singer. I knew she sang several songs with Marvin Gaye, which she did, but listen to her story. So she was born April 29th, 1945 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Terrell's career began, this is the late Tammy Terrell. She's no longer alive. Terrell's career began as a teenager, recording for Scepter Wand Records, Checker Records, and then in 1965 for Motown Records. With Marvin Gaye, Terrell scored 7 top 40 singles, including Ain't No Mountain High Enough, which was inducted into the Grammy Hall of Fame in 1999, Ain't Nothing Like the Real Thing, and You're All I Need to Get By. Terrell's career was interrupted when she collapsed into Marvin Gaye's arms as the two performed at a concert at Hampton-Sydney College, which is in Virginia, on October 14th, 1967, with Terrell later being diagnosed with a brain tumor. She had 8 unsuccessful surgeries before succumbing to the illness on March 16th, 1970, at the age of 24.
Imagine today, though, they probably could have taken care of that.
Yeah, and
it's
what
just timing.
Blew me away was, first of all, she was only 24 when she died, so she had already done all of these top 10 hits. Most of them were done with Marvin Gaye. But can you imagine, like in the middle of a performance? Wow, I was really surprised at that. I'm starting to feel like Buster McMahon here with my little trivia with all these entertainment things. All right, it is also, we'll do one more birthday before we take a break. It is also the birthday of the late William Randolph Hearst, newspaper publisher. He was born April 29th, 1863 in San Francisco. He died in 1951 at the age of 88. So William Randolph Hearst is best known for publishing the largest chain of American newspapers in the late 19th century. He was taught in private schools and attended Harvard, where he served as an editor for the Harvard Lampoon before being expelled for misconduct. Hearst's father, a California gold rush multimillionaire, had acquired the failing San Francisco Examiner newspaper to promote his political career. In 1887, William was granted the opportunity to run the publication. He invested heavily in the newspaper, hiring the most talented writers of the time, including Mark Twain and Jack London. There's Pete doing the
typewriter.
doing the typewriter thing. As editor, William Randolph Hearst adopted a sensational brand of reporting later known as yellow journalism, with sprawling banner headlines and sensational stories, many based on speculation and half-truths. Gee! See any of that lately?
No, this is This is nothing new.
Yes, right, exactly. But the paper also conducted investigative reports on government corruption and negligence by public institutions. With the success of the Examiner, when William Randolph Hearst set his sights on larger markets, he purchased the New York Morning Journal in 1895 and a year later began publishing the Evening Journal. By the 1920s, 1 in every 4 Americans read a Hearst newspaper. His media empire had grown to include 20 daily and 11 Sunday papers in 13 cities, as well as 6 magazines. The Great Depression took a toll on Hearst's company, and his influence gradually waned, though his company survived. During this time, however, William Randolph Hearst seemed out of touch. He turned against President Roosevelt, while most of his readership was made up of working-class people who supported FDR. Hearst didn't help his declining reputation when, now here's a piece of trivia for you, Pete. In 1934, he visited Berlin and interviewed Adolf Hitler, helping to legitimize Hitler's leadership in Germany. In 1941, Orson Welles produced Citizen Kane, a thinly veiled biography of the rise and fall of William Randolph Hearst. Hearst was not pleased. He mustered his resources to prevent release of the film and even offered to pay for the destruction of all the prints. Welles refused, and the film survived and thrived. So
Hearst Media still exists till this day, I think. The
company
still
exists. Does it really?
exists.
The company does?
Yeah.
Amazing. All right, well, we have one more birthday, but we're going to save that because it is 6:45, and we're going to take a break. And we're going to listen to Tommy James and the Shondells. This is your wake-up, feel-good party song. So we're doing some fun, happy songs this first hour. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM radio for the Westfield Masses and WCPC cable channel 15. In honor of the birthday of Tommy James, Moni Moni.
Here she comes now, saying morning, morning. Well, shoot 'em down, turn around, come on, morning. Hey, she give me low and I feel alright now. There you go. You got me tossing, turning, feeling right, and I feel alright. I say yeah. Well, you make me feel so good. Yeah, so good. All right, come on. All right, baby. Say yeah. Wake me, shake me, moaning, moaning. Shotgun, get it done, come on, moaning. Don't stop cooking, it feels so good, yeah. Hey, but don't stop now, hey, come on, moaning, yeah. Well, you make me feel so good. All right, come on, so good. All right, I say
Underwriting for Community Radio on WSKB is brought to you in part by Rockies. Over 30 convenient locations throughout Massachusetts, Rhode Island, New Hampshire, Connecticut, and Florida. One of the nation's largest Ace dealers. Expertise and great product selection in paint, hardware, lawn and garden. That's Rockies. Rock solid service since 1926. On the web at rockies.com. Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by Comcast and Xfinity.com, offering Xfinity TV, Internet, home phone, and home security services. Information on all that Xfinity has to offer in the Westfield area is available online at Xfinity.com.
Hi, this is Harry Rock, host of Rock on Westfield every fourth Wednesday at 8 a.m. Tune in for my view of this place I call home.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB. Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM WSKB Westfield.
Good morning, Westfield. It is 6:49. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM radio for the Westfield masses and WCPC cable channel 15. My name is Tina Gorman. I'm your Wake Up Wednesday host. It is April 29th. I'm in studio with Pete Coles. Good morning again, Pete.
Good morning.
You know, Pete, I was thinking while we were listening to that song that I was just kind of looking around the studio thinking how far we have come. I mean, first of all, I have 3 clocks in here that all are correct in their time.
Pretty close.
Do you remember the old days when I used to bring my little purple, my little
I
purple
noticed
clock?
it's not here anymore.
It's not here anymore. I don't need it because it had in addition to the time, it also had the date, and I can never remember what the date is. But I've got all that on my screen. I can see you. We've got logos all over the place. We've got this really professional studio that we're utilizing in really wonderful, creative ways, and right now really necessary ways.
Yeah.
So it's really kind of exciting. So thank you for all your work, because this is all you, my friend. This is Pete Coles.
I got a lot of help too.
You did.
I get a lot of help.
But it was your vision, and I think you're right. I mean, the help was absolutely necessary. I mean, I know Kenny's been amazing, and Jay's been amazing. But you had to have the vision, and you're the one who had to go to City Hall and fight for it too. So I know what that's like.
Yep, fighting for dollars is always fun.
Always fun. Always fun. All right. It is the birthday. Today is April 29th, and it is the birthday of the late, great Duke Ellington, composer, pianist, and band leader. He was born 1899 on this date in Washington, D.C. He died on May 24th, 1974, at the age of 75. In the 1920s, Duke Ellington performed in Broadway nightclubs as the band leader of a sextet, a group which in time grew to a 10-piece ensemble. Ellington sought out musicians with unique playing styles. In the 1930s, Duke Ellington made hundreds of recordings with his bands, appeared in films and on radio, and toured Europe on 2 occasions. Ellington's fame rose to the rafters in the 1940s when he composed several master works, including Concerto for Cootie, Cottontail, and Coco. Some of his most popular songs included It Don't Mean a Thing If It Ain't Got That Swing, Sophisticated Lady, Prelude to a Kiss, Solitude, and Satin Doll. Perhaps Ellington's most famous jazz tune was Take the A Train, which was recorded for commercial purposes in 1941. The A referred to a subway line in New York City. Ellington earned 12 Grammy Awards from 1959 to 2009 while he was still alive. So happy birthday to the late, great Duke Ellington. And we will play that Take the A Train piece a little bit later during the second hour. So those are our famous birthdays for today. There were actually some more, but Daniel Day-Lewis was also born today. There were some others, but, only so many birthdays we can do.
Sure.
All right, so National Day. So I thought this was kind of interesting because today is National Denim Day. So I'm thinking, okay, so this is all going to be about, clothes and casual and, maybe it has something to do with Levi Strauss's birthday. Nope, not at all. I was off in a completely wrong direction. So each year in April, Denim Day raises awareness about all forms of sexual violence. Okay, so you'll understand why in just a
Okay.
few minutes. Throughout the country and world, the day sets a standard of support for survivors and provides a foundation for solidarity through a simple message. There is no reason for sexual assault, not even the type of clothes a person wears. The statistics are staggering, but the personal stories are more haunting. According to RAINN, RAINN statistics, and RAINN stands for Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network, 1 in every 6 American women has been a victim of an attempted or completed rape in her lifetime. There's no reason for them to be victims, not their age, their clothes, or their status. The day calls for everyone to wear denim to show support for victims and survivors of sexual harassment, abuse, assault, and rape. College campuses, clinics, businesses, and organizations host educational events and fundraisers to increase awareness and change misconceptions. But here's the history of Denim Day. An Italian parliament in 1999 overturned a 1992 rape conviction based on the victim's clothing. According to the decision, the woman was wearing tight jeans and therefore must have given consent. This decision led to protests in Italy where women wore jeans showing support for the victim. Since then, the organization Peace Over Violence has sponsored Denim Day as a day to raise awareness and eliminate sexual violence around the world. So how do you observe Denim Day? Wear denim. So I'm wearing my jeans today. Got my jeans on. Join a prevention and education campaign. Donate or volunteer to help the cause. Domestic violence centers and hotlines require assistance, and many of them, utilize volunteers for that. Learn to become an advocate for change. Start a conversation. During your discussion, share experiences. Learn more by visiting www.denimdayinfo.org. So, National Denim Day. Who knew? And we are having a special day at the Senior Center today, Pete. We have declared this Wednesday, April 29th today, Kitchen Crew Appreciation Day. So that is what we are holding at the Senior Center today. So everyone who came through the lunch line yesterday got this little orange slip of paper, and it reads, Joanne Spear, Food Services Coordinator, and George Svakios, Kitchen Assistant, have been behind the scenes preparing delicious meals for our seniors. Tomorrow, they will be joining us curbside. I am literally dragging them outside because they prefer to stay behind the scenes. But I'm asking my seniors to please take this opportunity through your kind words, a wave, or a note to let them know how much they are appreciated. So they're coming out. They don't have a choice. I said to them, this is your boss speaking. So I'm trying to decide where I'm going to put them, whether I'm going to have them with Gary, so that, people can really kind of socialize for a minute. I think that's where they're going to go. Or whether they're going to be up with Mary Lou and Karen and me, where we do actually distribute the food. But I have to I'll ask Mary Lou and Karen what they think about that. But today is Kitchen Crew Appreciation Day. So if you're driving by the Senior Center and you're not getting a lunch or whatever, just honk your horn, because George and Joanne are going to be outside. They have worked tirelessly for us. The numbers are, yesterday I think we did 130 or 135. Our high number right now is 140. And just to put this in some perspective for people, our averages at the Senior Center were probably about 80, 85. If we did a party, we capped out at like 115. Mm-hmm. So for us to be doing 125, 135, 140 in a day it's with less help, because we don't have any volunteers in the kitchen. It's George and Joanne. That's it. We're not letting any. And of course, most of our volunteers are seniors. They're at risk, so they're all sheltering in place. Right. So they are just, Joanne and George are there every day before 7 o'clock. The ovens are going. They're in and out of the cooler and the freezer. We've got and it's not as simple to do takeout, curbside pickup meals as serving at the Senior Center, because everything's got to be packaged. So they cook, they begin the package process, and then Mary Lou and Karen and Joanne Ortegas, my outreach coordinator, they put on their, put the lunches together hat, and they start doing that. So anyway, kudos to my staff, because they are the best. They are the best. Dave Keene.
Speaking of salutes,
yes.
Did you see that the Blue Angels and the Thunderbirds did a huge salute over New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania yesterday.
I didn't.
Flying in dual formation.
Well, you know what? I didn't, but I got to tell you, there was all kinds of stuff going on yesterday while we were doing lunches. They were all, I don't know whether they were rehearsing or practicing or what, because there was all kinds of.
They were doing flight time yesterday.
Flight stuff yesterday.
But they might have been supporting that mission, running cover for them, because they flew literally over New York City.
I did not know that.
A good part of New Jersey and Philadelphia and Pennsylvania. So they did.
Wow.
They were up. The Blue Angels and the Thunderbirds were flying together for one of the few times that they actually do that.
Very cool.
All over, celebrating the healthcare workers, and there's video all over the internet about it. But
and
it was cool.
I imagine that's fairly tricky to do, having those two groups doing. We're talking about like large things flying through the air at very fast speeds.
Well, that's like 16 jets in a tight formation.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, wow, for them to do it individually is a lot, but for those two groups to be doing it simultaneously,
the last time I
a
think
lot of coordination.
a lot of those together was Canada. They did a thing on the U.S.-Canada border for an air show in Toronto. It was the Snowbirds.
Okay.
The Canadian Snowbirds, the Blue Angels, and the Thunderbirds were all appearing at the same show. It was a huge air show. And they did a simultaneous flyover together, all in formation. Their big formation.
Wow, very cool.
Yeah,
very cool. All right, it is 6:59. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM radio for the Westfield masses and WCPC cable channel 15. We're going to take our top of the hour break. When we come back, I've got lots of announcements to do because our May edition of the Voice of Experience newsletter came out. Pete's been working with us on some programming for May, so we're going to talk about that. And at 7:15, hopefully our guest, Dr. Kristen Porter, will be calling in. She's a medical what is she? Biology.
Immunologist?
She does a lot with immunology.
Yeah.
Anyway,
all right, we'll get it from her.
I'll get it when I'll get
Hospital, a brand new name for a Westfield institution which is improving the health of our community every day with quality and compassion. Noble Hospital and Bay State Health, better together. Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by Bay State Dental. Comprehensive dentistry at 14 convenient locations in Springfield, Chicopee, Longmeadow, West Springfield, Belchertown, East Longmeadow, Ludlow, Northampton, Greenfield, and Wilbraham, as well as 29 Broad Street in Westfield. Bay State Dental makes it a priority to help you achieve and maintain the healthy smile you deserve. On the web at baystatedental.com.
Support for community radio on WSKB provided by Westfield Electroplating. Employing over 140 skilled platers, painters, and technicians, Westfield Electroplating was founded in 1946 and was the first company in the country to achieve National Aerospace and Defense Contractor Program accreditation, proudly maintaining that status for over a decade. Westfield Electroplating provides over 50 quality finishes to meet your corrosion, cosmetic, or performance needs. On the web at www.westfieldplating.com or 413-568-3716. Westfield Electroplating, putting the finishing touches on technology.
I'm Mark Auerbach. Join me every Friday at 8 a.m. for Arts Beat, where you'll meet interesting actors, directors, designers, and musicians here in Western New England.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB. Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 at 89.5 FM, WSKB Westfield.
Good morning, Westfield. It is 7:04. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM radio for the Westfield masses and WCPC cable channel 15. It is Wednesday, April 29th. My name is Tina Gorman. I'm your Wake Up Wednesday host, and I'm in studio this morning with producer Pete Coles. Good morning again, Pete.
Good morning.
So, yesterday, the May edition of the Voice of Experience newsletter, here we go, this way, hit the streets on Saturday as an insert into the Westfield News. We were passing it out yesterday. Gary was passing it out at his station as cars were stopping to pick up their lunches. He was also passing out our little notice about Kitchen Crew Appreciation Day today, and this very important notice, which I do want to, I'm like Harry. It's hard to know which direction. Here we go. So let me tell you what this says. May 19th, we have a special election here in Westfield. We will be voting for our state senator. That person will be replacing our current mayor, Don Humison. You can apply for an early ballot. So let me explain to you how the early ballot application process works. We've been working with Karen Fannion on this. So Karen has been providing us with guidance, and we are trying to get the word out on this. If you would like to apply to receive an early ballot in the mail for the Tuesday, May 19th special election, you must submit an early ballot application to the city clerk's office by Tuesday, May 12th. The city clerk will then mail you an early ballot. The early ballot must be returned to the city clerk's office by Election Day, which is Tuesday, May 19th, in order for your vote to be counted. You're going to mail the application and then the ballot to the city clerk, Westfield City Hall, 59 Court Street, Westfield, Mass. So what we are handing out to the seniors is that instruction sheet that I just read you and a copy of the early ballot application. This is not the ballot, because you have to apply to get the ballot.
Right.
The application is very simple. It's just your name, your legal voting residence, your date of birth, your phone number and email address if you have one, the ballot information. Where do you want Karen to mail your ballot to? You're going to give her the address, and then any special voting circumstances, and then you're going to sign it. And that's it. You're going to send that off to Karen, but you have to get that to the city clerk's office a week before the election to give Karen time
by May
12th.
To
then by May 12th. So that gives Karen time to mail you the ballot and for you to mail it back to her. There's a lot of mailing going on here, but it prevents people from having to go out of their home to vote.
Right.
So that's the whole idea behind it. We have
the actual polling place will be at the former South Middle School.
Have they decided that, Pete, that it's just when we went to press, Karen didn't have they knew that what they were going to do had they done the election in March.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if that carried over.
She didn't know. It didn't. And they were not sure. She was not sure. She did not have definitive
right now, May 19th
guidelines.
puts us in the opening guideline time, according to the governor.
You're right.
The governor said May 18th.
It'll be the day after. So we'll see what happens. Those instructions for where the polls will be and who will be manning the polls.
I think the biggest thing was they didn't have enough workers.
That is a huge problem because most of the poll workers are older
retired.
adults.
Yeah.
They're all retired. They're older adults. So huge problem. But anyway, I am really encouraging people to do the early ballot application. It's simple. You do it by mail and you don't have to worry about getting out to the polls. So. All right, so we're handing those out. We have them at the senior center. You can call City Hall, call the clerk's office if you need. I'm sure that they have that the application for the early ballot is online. I think that's how we got ours. So, but you can certainly
it's in
call
the city clerk's page.
Yep,
on the
I think if
website.
you go onto the cityofwestfield.org and under departments go into the clerk's office, the city clerk. Okay, so as I mentioned, our Voice of Experience newsletter hit the streets this weekend. So we do have some really great programming going on in May, despite the fact that our doors will remain closed throughout the month. So our biggest event will be, we usually have our Mother's Day big party. Well, here's what we're doing this year. Mother's Day, I'm calling it the Parade of Hats Curbside Television Luncheon. So here's how this is going to work. So we're going to do a curbside lunch. If you want reservation, you have to make a reservation for the Mother's Day curbside lunch pickup. And we will start taking those reservations on Thursday, May 7th at 1 p.m. So you're going to call in just like you do every day, but this time you're going to call in on the 7th, say that you want to participate in the Mother's Day luncheon, and we will put you down. Now, you'll actually pay for that. You're not going to get a ticket. You're going to pay for it when you come through the line. The luncheon is scheduled for May 14th. The lunch line will be at 11 o'clock, just like, if you do it, if you've been getting lunches with us. So between 11 and 12, you'll come pick up your lunch. The menu is, I'm looking to see where I have this on here. Here we go. Baked glazed ham, scalloped potatoes, asparagus, and a mouth-watering dessert. And you're going to come and you're going to get your meal. Now, this is called the Parade of Hats because we were trying to figure out, everybody stays in their car. So what can we do that's special? Well, everybody can wear a hat. And if you don't have a hat at home, you can make one because you have a month to do that or 3 weeks to do that. So everybody's going to come through wearing a hat. We're going to take lots of pictures. Yep. So after you get your lunch, then you're going to go back home to shelter in place, and you're going to turn on cable channel 15, just like you've got it on now. And at 1 o'clock, you are going to be entertained by Noah Liss, who is doing a special concert. He's recording it at his home studio just for our Mother's Day party. And Pete's working. Pete Coles here is working with Noah, so it's going to be a lot of fun. It'll be different. It's Mother's Day with a twist, but it'll be a lot of fun. So just remember, and I will announce it again next week. So the tickets will go on sale a week from tomorrow. So it'll be May 7th. That'll be your reservations. So that's for Mother's Day. We also, starting in May, the first week in May, we will be offering chair yoga via Channel 15. So Terry Summers came in last week, worked with Pete Coles to tape a chair yoga session. So you'll be able to do that in your home. We have the schedule of the days. She'll be doing that on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 2 o'clock, starting on May 5th. And then Dr. Gary Gorman, is also doing a different exercise program. And somebody said to me, Pete, when they came through the line yesterday, she was so excited that we spread out the exercise so that you can do an exercise session Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, following along on Channel 15. Gary did it with my daughter, Grace. They came in the studio. He said they had a wonderful time. He did his a little bit differently. So he kind of walked you through exercises to do, and then you'll be able to do those and pace yourself, with the number of repetitions and so forth. So
I think the next time around he's going to do it more of the traditional.
He will. He
just want to get people kind of
sort of
into it.
Understanding like what some of the different options are. And as Pete said, when he comes in, maybe we'll have him do that for the June session where he'll actually do it with you and do it at the pace that you will do it at. But he just wanted to, I think, show people a variety of exercises and so forth. So that's called Let's Quit Sitting. And, of course, the chair yoga.
Well, he never gave me the title.
Yeah, that's what it's called. It's called Let's Quit Sitting.
I just have it stretching with Dr. Gary Gorman.
And that's fine, too. That's okay, too. Well, I don't know if you remember, Pete, but Gary had talked about on air, he had talked about how sitting is the new smoking. It's so detrimental for your health. So his whole thing was let's quit sitting because, we know a lot of people, you're sitting around, you're watching TV, you're sheltering in place, you're watching movies and Netflix and all that other stuff. So Gary's like, okay, you can't just be sitting doing nothing. You've got to be doing something else. So hence the thing. And then also our local attorney, Rock Palmer, is going to be doing an educational program for us. He was waiting for a really important legislative ordinance to get passed at the state level, and I think that it did get passed last Thursday. So we'll be coordinating the efforts with that, and it's called Getting Your Will, Healthcare Proxy, and Durable Power of Attorney Done While Social Distancing. So that's that. And just a reminder that the 2000 census is going on right now, and we're really encouraging people to fill out their census forms. They prefer that you do it online. If you have gotten a reminder and you have your ID card on that, but you don't have access to doing it online, Karen Noblet will help you to do it online. If you call the senior center, Karen, you have to call and make an appointment with her. But what she'll do is she'll have you on the phone. She'll be on the census website. You will be giving her the information, and she'll be putting it on the website. But in order for her to do that, you need you should have gotten a card in the mail or a letter with your family ID on there, and she needs that ID because as long as she has that, she can plug in the ID, and it takes about 5 minutes to do it. It's very simple. So you can call Karen at the Senior Center at 562-6435 after 12:15 p.m. because before that we are tied up with getting lunches ready.
Yes.
Pete, is my caller on yet?
Yes, she is.
Oh, she is. Okay, perfect. Okay, so the only other thing that I want to announce before we take a short break is because I've had a lot of questions about this, and this has to do with the economic impact payments, which have started coming through, the $1,200 payments. People are getting those. If you filed taxes in 2018 or 19 with direct deposit, you should those rounds of checks have already started being deposited. But I've had a lot of questions from my seniors who don't have to file taxes because they don't make enough money to do that, and they primarily are just living on Social Security. If your Social Security checks are direct deposit into your bank account, which most of them are, the vast majority are, then you will be in the second wave of payments coming out of the federal government. And so those should start sometime in May. So you should start seeing that $1,200 payment directly into your bank accounts sometime in May. So people had, I had a lot of seniors who were thinking that they had to file taxes because originally that was what was going to have to happen. And then I guess the feds rethought that and said, that's probably not going to work since nobody can get help filing their taxes right now because they're all sheltering in place. So,
Right.
All right, it is 7:15. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM radio for the Westfield masses and WCPC cable channel 15. In honor of the birthday of Carl Gardner, we're going to listen to a song by the Coasters, Charlie Brown, and when we come back, we have Dr. Kristen Porter on the line with us.
I smell smoke in the auditorium. Charlie Brown, he's a clown. That Charlie Brown, he's gonna get caught. Just you wait and see. Why is everybody always picking on me? That's him on his knees. I know that's him. Yelling 7, 11 down in the boys' gym. Charlie Brown, he's a clown. That Charlie Brown, he's gonna get caught. Just you wait and see. Why is everybody always picking on me? Who's always writing on the wall? Who's always hooping in the hall? Who's always throwing spitball? Guess who? Who, me? Yeah, you! He walks in the classroom, cool and slow. Who calls the English teacher Daddy-O? Charlie Brown, he's a clown. Charlie Brown, he's gonna get caught. Guess you wait and see. Why is everybody always picking on me? He walks in the classroom, cool and slow. Who calls English teacher Daddy-O? Charlie Brown, he's a clown. Now Charlie Brown, he's gonna get caught. Guess you wait and see. Why is everybody always picking on me?
Support for community radio on WSKB is provided by Betts Plumbing and Heating Supply Company, an independent, family-owned wholesaler serving Westfield for over 50 years, specializing in plumbing, heating, and industrial piping supplies. On the web at bettsplumbing.com or at 14 Coleman Avenue in Westfield.
Listen to me, Michael Buster McMahon, Mondays 8 to 10 a.m. to learn the stories behind your favorite songs. Or don't. I'm not the boss of you.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB. Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM WSKB Westfield.
Good morning, Westfield. It is 7:19. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM radio for the Westfield masses and WCPC cable channel 15. It is Wednesday, April 29th. My name is Tina Gorman. I'm your Wake Up Wednesday host. And Pete Coles is in the studio with me, very protected behind his glass, just so that I don't want anybody to worry. Pete and I are not sitting next to each other. Yeah. We're not even in the same room. We can see each other. My guest this morning, calling in by phone, is Dr. Kristen Porter. She is Assistant Professor, Department of Biology at Westfield State University. Oh, I feel like your picture's up here, Kristen, so I feel like I know you. I can see you. I have to tell you, it's a gorgeous picture. I said to Pete Coles, I said, have you ever met Dr. Porter? And he said, no. I said, she's gorgeous. She could be a model. Wait till you see this picture that you throw up on the screen. So you are you are on our cable channel. We can see you. So good morning. Are you awake yet?
I'm getting there.
Are you getting there? Yes.
I'm getting there.
Okay.
I can do this.
Oh, you absolutely. Well, you know what? And we're really going to ease into this, Kristen. So typically, what I do is when it's a new guest, and you are a new guest, we have not had you on the show yet. We like to get to know our guests a little bit. So we'll do a little bit about your background and your education and so forth, and sort of how you ended up at Westfield State and how long you've been there and where you were before. And then at 7:30, we'll take a break. At 7:45, we'll take a break. So, and in between those, we're going to talk about the topic of the day, which is obviously COVID-19 and testing and the possibility of a vaccine and treatments and all of those other good things. But let's start at the beginning, because we don't know anything about you other than that you're beautiful, because we can see your picture. So, tell us a little bit. Where are you from? Where were you born? Where did you grow up? And where did you go to school?
Well, I have to start with a disclaimer first.
Okay.
I worked with the federal government, so I have to do this for the rest of my professional life.
Okay.
But first, I'm not a physician.
Right.
Number one.
That's right.
Also, I do not speak on behalf of the federal government or Westfield State University. All views and opinions are my own.
Perfect.
So there's my disclaimer.
We got it. And although you are not a medical doctor, you are a PhD, so you are a doctor.
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So, Kristen, where are you from?
I grew up actually in New Hampshire.
Okay.
And I did my undergraduate work at University of New Hampshire.
All righty. And what did you study in undergraduate school?
Microbiology.
Okay. And when you attended college, what was your career goal at that time? Was it kind of where you ended up, or did you take a turn somewhere?
It was kind of planned out. I wasn't sure if I was going to go into industry or go to graduate school or go into research, and I just kind of happened to stumble onto my path working in Boston in a microbial genetics lab for a few years.
Okay.
And then from there, it just kind of took off down the path.
So now, where did you go for your graduate work?
I went to Albany Medical College, obviously in Albany, New York,
Mm-hmm.
and I got my PhD in biomedical sciences, specifically in immunology and microbial diseases.
Okay. So so after you got your PhD, what happened then? What was your next step?
So when I did my PhD, I actually did work specifically on HIV and inflammation. So technically, I'm a viral immunologist. And from there, I went to the National Institutes of Health down in Bethesda, Maryland, and I actually worked under Dr. Fauci at the National Institutes of Allergy and Infectious Diseases.
Okay.
And that was just a serendipitous career opportunity that came my way.
Yeah, that's amazing. Now, so like, how long ago was that? Because now, I mean, you look like you're about 20, but when you start adding up all these experiences, so how long ago did you work with Dr. Fauci?
I didn't work directly with Dr.
Right.
Fauci, but to see him about 3 times a year.
Okay.
To get his opinion on things.
Yeah, right. Absolutely.
So I worked there until 2012 to 2016 when I came to Westfield State.
Oh wow, so fairly recently. And from NIH, from the National Institute of Health, from there you came to Westfield?
Yes.
So that's a transition because you been in academia before? I mean, did you do some when you were getting your PhD?
Yeah, I did some when I was
teaching.
Getting my PhD, but coming to a teaching-heavy institution
was
a little bit of a shell shock, and took some adapting, but I got there.
What made you make that decision? Because that really is that's a real turn from what you were doing down in Bethesda.
Right. It was multifactorial. I did enjoy what I was doing at NIH, but at the same time, I wanted to do something, I guess, while it was impactful, I wanted to be more on the ground and working with students and teaching. I really wanted to teach.
Okay.
And so I actually applied to places that were near where I grew up, so I could also be closer to family.
Sure.
So that's essentially how I got here to
Okay.
Westfield.
Okay. And what exactly, now you're going to have to put this in layman's terms because we're not all scientists listening to this show. But so what exactly were you doing at the National Institute of Health?
So what I did was I wasn't at the lab bench anymore. I was an administrator.
Okay.
And I helped to set research priorities as well as used grants and contracts and oversaw the development of products to prevent HIV.
Okay.
So that went from overseeing some basic science, investigators at different institutions that were doing basic science towards that end, all the way up onto clinical trial oversight. So I ran the gamut when I was there.
So now, were you working primarily with colleges and universities, or pharmaceutical companies, or a combination?
That's actually a great question. The Division of AIDS, where I was at the National Institutes of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, has a great setup where we had kind of this consortium cooperative agreements where we could, or we did, bring together academics, biotechs, contract research organizations, big pharma, and they would form groups towards the development of a particular prevention modality.
Okay.
Where they could take it, if they were successful, up to clinical trial.
Okay. So,
if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. That makes a lot of sense. So there were actually so my question having to do with, was it more academia based or more pharmaceutical or big business? But it sounds like it was a combination.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would probably say while it was more academia, it was probably about 60% academia, 40% industry, including pharma.
Okay. And was this international or just national? Were these companies just in the United States, or were they all over the world?
Oh, they were all over the world.
Okay.
All over the world.
Okay.
Including, a lot of clinical trials go on in South Africa and other sites around Africa as well.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. So, so now you've been at Westfield State for 4 years. Is that right?
Yeah, it's already been 4 years.
So how was that transition for you?
It was like drinking from a fire hose at first. The best way I can describe it. But once you get your feet underneath you, it's good. I think the best part of teaching there is the students at Westfield State. They're amazing. A lot of them are either first generation to go to college. A lot of them have full-time jobs. They're very down to earth.
Yes.
They work exceptionally hard. So I'd say my favorite part is probably engagement with the students. And a lot of them are so eager to learn more advanced biology.
Kristen, do you teach first year, second year, third year, fourth year combination? What's the age range for the students? Well, not so much because I'm sure you have some non-traditional students, but just year wise, are they just getting their feet wet, or are you teaching like juniors and seniors?
All of the above.
Okay, everybody.
All of the above.
And what courses are you teaching?
So I teach medical microbiology. I also teach immunology. And then we started up a biotechnology concentration, and I teach the courses that are more biotechnology specific, if you will.
Yep.
And that's based upon my experience with product development that I had with the federal government.
Perfect. All right, so now we kind of have your background. We know who you are. This is a perfect time. We're going to segue into a little break. When we come back, we're going to start talking a little bit about COVID-19 And speaking of testing, we're going to talk a little bit about testing and your views on that. So it's 7:30. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM radio for the Westfield Masses and WCPC cable channel 15. My guest this morning is Dr. Kristen Porter, assistant professor, Department of Biology, Westfield State University. We're going to listen to Tammy Terrell and Marvin Gaye singing Ain't No Mountain High Enough in honor of the birthday of Tammy Terrell. We'll be back in just a few minutes.
Listen, baby, ain't no mountain high, ain't no valley low, ain't no river wide enough, baby.
If you need me, call me, no matter where you are, no matter how far.
Don't worry, baby.
Just call my name, I'll be there in a hurry. You don't have to worry, 'cause baby, there ain't no mountain high enough. Ain't no valley low enough. Ain't no river wide enough
To keep me from getting to you, baby. Remember the day I set you free. I told you you could always count on me, darling. From that day on, I made a vow. I'll be there when you want me, some way, somehow. Oh, baby, there ain't no mountain high enough. Ain't no valley low enough. Ain't no river wide enough to keep me from getting to you, baby. Oh, no, darling.
No wind, no rain, or winter's cold can stop me, baby.
No, no, baby.
'Cause you are
If you're ever in trouble, I'll be there on the double. Just send for me, oh, baby.
my love is alive, way down in my heart, although we are miles apart.
If you ever need a helping hand, I'll be there on the double, just as fast as I can. Don't you know that there ain't no mountain high enough? Ain't no valley low enough. Ain't no river wide enough.
Keep me from getting to you, babe. Don't you know that there
Ain't no mountain high enough. Ain't no valley low enough. Ain't no river wide enough. Ain't no mountain high enough.
Underwriting support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Greater Westfield Chamber of Commerce, the voice of business for the Greater Westfield communities. Informing, educating, advocating, the Chamber provides opportunities for members to make meaningful connections on local, regional, and state levels. For more information on the Chamber's many events, workshops, and programs, as well as the benefits of membership, visit westfieldbiz.org. The Chamber focuses on the most important economy, yours.
Hi, it's Bob Plass, and I have Wow, It's Tuesday, every Tuesday, 6 to 8. Wow, it's Tuesday.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB.
I did it!
Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM, WSKB Westfield.
Good morning, Westfield. It is 7:33. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM radio for the Westfield Masses and WCPC cable channel 15. My name is Tina Gorman. I'm your Wake Up Wednesday host, and on the phone with me this morning is my guest, Dr. Kristen Porter. She's an assistant professor in the Department of Biology at Westfield State University. Good morning again, Kristen. Are you still
Good
there?
morning. I'm still
You're
here.
still there? You didn't fall asleep on me?
No, I didn't fall back.
Okay. Well, now that we know a little bit, now that we know a little bit about your background, I do want to get into discussion about COVID-19, which of course is the topic of the month right now. So let's talk a little bit. You mentioned before the break a little bit about testing. So let's talk about why it took so long to develop a test for COVID-19. Or my other question is, from a scientist's point of view, did it take that long to develop a test for COVID-19?
Well, if you back up a little bit and you think about, and I don't think a lot of people think about this because they're not developers of drugs or
Right.
diagnostics and
Right.
so on and so forth. that when you're developing a drug or a diagnostic test or even medical devices, they go through years of testing and scrutiny before they get FDA approval.
Right.
And this makes sense because you want to ensure that drugs not only work but are safe, as much as you want your diagnostic test to be accurate.
Correct.
So you can actually detect whatever infection, for example, that you're looking for. And in order to do this, you have to go through a number of regulations that's set out by the FDA.
Mm-hmm.
So even getting something to market that we already have has taken time, work, money, and this is just to get FDA approval of a product.
Right.
And then if you consider manufacturing of that product, one of the biggest jobs of the FDA is actual oversight of manufacturing facilities, especially for things like pharmaceuticals.
Yes.
And so these are all, it's federally mandated that you develop these products in facilities that are under FDA oversight. They're made under the strictest control so that, you can ensure quality and consistency. And this is so that if you are developing a diagnostic test and you have different lots of them, so one day you make one lot, the next day you make another lot. Let's say one goes to California and another goes to Massachusetts. You want them to be the same.
Correct.
The same accuracy, the
Correct.
same sensitivity.
Yep.
So manufacturing on its own is a lot of work, and not every facility is set up to actually manufacture these products.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot that goes into that. And if you consider a country as large as ours, you're talking about hundreds of millions of tests.
Right.
So
this is this is a slow process and that's why I asked the question of, people keep saying, why did it take so long? My thought was in scientific years, because I've done studying of like drugs for Alzheimer's disease and so forth, and so I'm thinking I don't think it probably was very long at all. I think did the FDA kind of water down some of the guidelines for all this?
Yeah, that's kind of exactly what happened, and that's not said to scare people in any way.
No, but I mean, in order to speed up the process, there were some hoops that I think you could bypass.
Yeah.
Right?
So, exactly. So you're essentially starting the process from scratch. You had to figure out what to look for.
Yes.
To diagnose COVID-19. You have to remember this is a new virus.
Right.
Its sisters are things like SARS, severe acute respiratory syndrome, which is caused by another coronavirus, for example.
Yep.
But this is a new virus, so you had to first identify exactly what to look for
Mm-hmm.
to diagnose somebody.
Yep.
And that takes time. Then you have to develop the test. Then you have to optimize it. And what was happening was the regulations, they were kind of, for lack of a better word, they're more lax now.
Right.
In that you aren't going through the FDA hurdles that you would normally go through to get a diagnostic approved.
Mm-hmm.
So what the FDA has done, actually what hospitals and labs have done, is they've kind of rapidly developed their own diagnostic tests.
Okay.
And what happens is they submit some documentation to the FDA. The FDA will very quickly look at this documentation. They just want to make sure that there is some sensitivity to it, et cetera. And then what they're doing is they're giving emergency use authorization.
Mm-hmm.
So this doesn't mean that the test is FDA approved.
Understood.
So it's not something like your point of care at the bedside influenza test.
Right. Understood.
This is emergency use, and they do this to speed up the process during things like national emergencies.
Okay, so I have to ask this question, and this is strictly an opinion because you gave the disclaimer right at the onset. In your opinion, how accurate are the tests?
Well, that's part of the problem is you really don't know, though the FDA has started to set up some guidelines and studies to look at that. But if you think about it, every site or multiple sites are using different tests that they came up with. And accuracy really hasn't been looked at or by the FDA to really approve the claims that are being made by these companies or these hospitals that have made these tests.
Okay.
So what you're getting is different tests at different commercial labs, different hospitals, for example. So you have a lot of false negatives, or in some cases, false positives.
Right.
Even in China, that happened, where there were patients that were admitted to the hospital. One day they would test positive for the virus, the next day negative, the next day positive, the next day positive, the next day negative. So when you're talking about accuracy, they're not necessarily as accurate as they could be because they haven't undergone FDA scrutiny.
Right.
But they will be eventually.
Right. Okay. All right. And why aren't there enough? I mean, the one thing that we're hearing now is the states are all saying we don't have enough tests. And is that just the factor of there's not a way to manufacture these fast enough, or what's the deal with that?
Yeah, exactly. So if you're talking about the development of a diagnostic that gets manufactured in a facility with clean rooms and so on and so forth, that takes time. And if you're talking about facilities that don't necessarily manufacture these types of products and have to switch over to manufacturing them, that takes time.
Mm-hmm.
You're also talking about hundreds of millions of tests. That takes time. The other thing that people don't consider a lot, and this is just for pharmaceutical drugs, almost 80% of our drugs are produced overseas, not in the U.S.
Yes.
So getting them manufactured in facilities that have been or have the FDA has oversight over those as well, and then getting them to the United States, is another bottleneck to actually getting the tests to the sites where they're needed. And again, some facilities are using their own tests that they've developed, but they still have to use products to do these tests that still meet the standards that were set about by the FDA. That takes time to make as well.
Okay. So the bottom line for our listeners, again, who are not necessarily scientists, are that potentially somebody could have a test, you could have a false negative, or you could have a false positive, meaning your test comes out negative, but you actually have COVID-19, or your test comes out positive and you actually do not have COVID-19. And I don't want to scare anybody, but there is that potential, correct?
There is that potential, but
Okay.
yes, please don't freak out. Run to your physician and say, "I definitely have it. Test me again. Test me again. Test me again." Because there's not enough. There's not enough tests.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Do you feel that with the way the manufacturing is going and so forth? I mean, do you feel that there is at least some level of reliability? I mean, it's not like people are doing this in their kitchen sink, trying to come up with these tests. These are, bona fide laboratories and colleges and universities. Yes. Yeah. Okay.
Yes. So the labs, like hospital labs and diagnostic labs, there are certifications. There's groups that go about. They'll inspect labs. They'll do certifications for the labs, for their facilities, for the training of their personnel, so on and so forth.
Okay.
No, it's not a bunch of people doing the work in the kitchen sink. It's actual people that can do the work, are experienced doing the work in laboratories that are meant to do these type of diagnostics.
Okay, perfect. It is 7:44. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM radio for the Westfield masses. My guest this morning is Dr. Kristen Porter. She's an assistant professor at the Department of Biology at Westfield State University. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, Kristen, I would like to just, we'll have about 10 minutes or so when we get back, and I just want to talk a little bit about antibody testing because that is now coming sort of to the forefront. So I want to get your thoughts and input on that. So in honor of the birthday of Duke Ellington, we're going to listen to Take the A Train, and we'll be back in just a minute.
Support for community radio and WSKB provided by Westfield Electroplating, Employing over 140 skilled platers, painters, and technicians, Westfield Electroplating was founded in 1946 and was the first company in the country to achieve National Aerospace and Defense Contractor Program accreditation, proudly maintaining that status for over a decade. Westfield Electroplating provides over 50 quality finishes to meet your corrosion, cosmetic, or performance needs. On the web at www.westfieldplating.com or 413-568-3716. Westfield Electroplating, putting the finishing touches on technology.
Hi, this is Harry Rock, host of Rock on Westfield every fourth Wednesday at 8 a.m. Tune in for my view of this place I call home.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB. Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM, WSKB Westfield.
Good morning, Westfield. It is 7:50. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM radio for the Westfield masses and WCPC Cable Channel 15. My name is Tina Gorman. I'm your Wake Up Wednesday host, and Pete Coles is in the studio with me. On the phone, we have Dr. Kristen Porter, Assistant Professor, Department of Biology, Westfield State University. Welcome back, Kristen. Are you still there?
I'm still here.
Perfect. So we've talked a little bit about COVID-19 testing, but right now we're hearing a lot about antibody testing. So can you explain to our listeners, what does that mean? What is antibody testing, and what are those tests going to tell us?
Okay, so you're talking antibodies, and that's immunology, so you're speaking my language, which I really like.
There you go.
But so the initial tests were genetic based, and we still have those. We still use those. Those are the majority of the testing that's being done. And what that tells you is it literally looks for when you do that uncomfortable nasal swab. They're looking for, I guess, what you could call the virus's DNA.
Okay.
So it's like a DNA test for the virus.
Okay.
And that's going to tell you. You have the virus on board. You're infected. You may be asymptomatic, you have no symptoms at all, but you're still a carrier and you're still spreading the virus.
Okay.
But it will tell you if you have the virus. What antibody testing does, so this is actually a blood test that you get done. It's not a nasal swab that's done.
Okay.
What they're looking for is antibodies that are present that are specific to the virus.
Okay.
Which means that you've been exposed to the virus.
Okay.
So it can't necessarily, it depends upon what antibody you're testing for. It doesn't necessarily tell you that you are infected. It may show that you've cleared the virus and you have the antibodies present. In some cases, they'll talk about different types of antibodies, and when you have those types of tests, you might be able to tell what stage of infection somebody is at looking at those antibodies.
Okay.
So that is essentially, you can see that you've been exposed to the virus. Potentially at some point the test may show where you are in the infection, but don't hold me to that. I don't know that that's going to happen right away. But it also won't show if you're immune to the virus.
Okay, and I think that was I was kind of going to lead into that as my next question, which was, so if you have the antibodies, I mean, should we be celebrating? Is that a good thing or is that not a good thing? And I guess my thought would be, well, if I think I have them and I'm immune, that's a great thing, but we don't know that? Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. So just like when you make a vaccine,
yep,
you have to figure out how much antibody you need to have in the blood to be protected against whatever you're vaccinating against.
Correct, right, okay.
Here we don't know that yet. We haven't done the studies to determine how much antibody you need in the system for you to be immune to reinfection with the same virus. So
Okay.
that's not known yet. That's going to require more research.
And that triggers another question, which is now the now what we're hearing in mainstream media is if you've been infected once, that doesn't necessarily mean that you wouldn't get infected again. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's accurate. Just because you've been infected once, it does not mean you are protected from getting infected again.
Does it matter, Kristen? Does it matter how severe? I think of something like chicken pox, and they used to say, well, if you had a case of chicken pox that was so mild that it wouldn't necessarily offer you protection down the road, but if you had a case that was more severe case, it probably would. Does it have to do with that? I mean, does it have to do with how severe a case you had if you ended up with COVID-19, or do we not even know that yet?
We don't even know that yet.
Okay.
We can't say. Again, it's going to depend upon how much antibody do I need to have in my blood to be protected. And we don't know how much antibody yet that we need in the blood to be protected from reinfection from COVID-19.
How do we find that out? Like, is that just is it a matter of time where we just have to wait it out and see, or how do they determine that?
Time and research.
Okay.
Time and research. That's what it comes down to with everything.
Yeah.
And, this has been something that kind of came on very fast. You're always behind the curve when you have an epidemic or a pandemic and you're just playing catch up.
Yes.
And this is something that we've not necessarily seen before, other than SARS and MERS, which are coronaviruses, and they're like cousins, but not the same thing.
Right.
So you need to, I guess, just be patient with that. We won't really know if you are immune until we've done all of these studies.
And that kind of leads to the final thing that I want to talk about, which is a vaccine. But without knowing what the level is, the conversation that we just had, that would lead me to believe that you can't. How can you do a vaccine until you know what level you need to be immune to COVID-19, right?
Yeah, well, that's part of the studies that need to go on when you're developing a vaccine.
Okay.
So oftentimes you may start in animals and you'll vaccinate, and then you may expose the animal and help to determine, okay, how much antibody do I need in the system, or other immune cells do I need in the system to protect? And then you move on to humans. If it's safe, if the FDA gives approval, I can go on to humans. I can do the vaccine studies in humans. Though that's been controversial too, about whether we do studies where somebody gets vaccinated with a particular vaccine strategy that's undergoing testing, and then do we give the person COVID-19 to see if they're immune? So that's been an ethical debate
dilemma.
as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So what, ballparking it, what are you thinking vaccine? Give me a ballpark time frame, a year and a half, 2, 5, 10, what?
See, that's tough because, if you think about when did we have the last vaccine that came to market?
Yeah, I have no idea.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's not that people aren't constantly looking for vaccines. We're always trying to develop a universal vaccine, for example.
Yes.
That's not to say that you won't have, like Dr. Fauci says, it's at minimum, because it has to go through the safety and efficacy testing to get FDA approval. It has to, and that takes time. So that's a minimum of a year, and that's if it's a successful vaccine.
Yes.
That's going to be the holdup. So safety and efficacy, those are going to be your two holdups.
Okay, and on that note, we're going to finish up. My guest this morning has been Dr. Kristen Porter, Assistant Professor, Department of Biology, Westfield State University. Kristen, I want to thank you so much for your input, for calling in, for getting up early in the morning when you're not in session right now. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
And
bye, everybody.
All right. We hope to have you on again soon. Thank you. It is 7:59. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM radio for the Westfield masses. My name is Tina Gorman. I have been your Wake Up Wednesday host this morning. Harry Rock is coming on. He'll have Superintendent of Schools, Stefan Zaporowski will be with him and talking all about what's going on with the end of the school year and the students still at home for the rest of the school year. So stay safe. Stay healthy, be physically distant, but socially connected. I will be back next week.
Never know how much I love you. Never know how much I care. When you put your arms around me, I get a fever that's so hard to bear. You give me fever when you kiss me, fever when you hold me tight. Fever in the morning, a fever all through the night. Sun lights up the daytime, moon lights up the night. I light up when you call my name, and you know I'm gonna treat you right. You give me fever when you kiss me, fever when you hold me tight. Fever in the morning, a fever all through the night. Everybody's got the fever, that is something you all know. Fever isn't such a new thing. Fever started long ago. Romeo loved Juliet. Juliet, she felt the same. When he put his arms around her, he said, Julie, baby, you're my flame. Now give us fever. When we kiss it, fever with thy flaming youth. Fever, I'm a fire. Fever, yea, I burn forsooth. Captain Smith and Pocahontas had a very mad affair. When her daddy tried to kill him, she said, Daddy, oh, don't you dare give me fever. With his kisses, fever when he holds me tight. Fever, I'm his missus. Daddy, won't you treat him right? Now you've listened to my story. Here's the point that I have made. Chicks were born to give you fever, be it Fahrenheit or centigrade, they give you fever. When you kiss them, fever, if you live, you learn. Fever, till you sizzle, what a lovely way to burn. What a lovely way to burn. What a lovely way to burn. What a lovely way to burn.
Support for the community